Hi, I'm Amy Cervini.
I'm Hillary Gardner.
And I'm Melissa Stilianu.
And we are Duchess.
When we started singing together, we discovered that humor, collaboration, and yes, imperfection were essential ingredients for our signature style of harmony.
We're setting out to explore what harmony means to creative people from all walks of life, and to learn how they find joy and success in their chosen field.
Along the way, there's sure to be laughter, storytelling, and probably hijinks. That's just who we are. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined today by one of my favorite vocalists of all time. It's true. Catherine Russell is here at Duchess headquarters, and we are so happy to have her as our guest for our podcast. And I'm really delighted to have you here, my friend.
Well, thank you, my friend. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, and I get to call you my friend. In fact, our son
just
Bailey,
today, or
just today, all the time,
All the time.
But I have a nearly 5-year-old son who knows Catherine because we sing together quite often at St. Peter's Church, and he's there, and he went to see you sing with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, and afterwards he was telling everybody at school, I saw my friend Catherine Russell singing.
That's adorable.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
That was a great concert, by the way. My kids enjoyed it very much as well.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You see, you never know. You never know who's out there.
having
Was
Yeah.
that there was the Benny Goodman tribute?
He fell asleep through that, but the next time he was wide awake for your concert, for the holiday concert.
Oh,
Oh, it
fabulous.
was a holiday concert. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
My kids went to the kids' show.
Right, the family concerts.
Yeah, the family concert. It was
yeah.
great.
Yeah, those are really good too.
Amazing.
I went to the Frank Sinatra
Oh, yeah?
tribute last year because we did a Louis Armstrong tribute this year.
That's the one I saw.
So yeah, so it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So we met. I figured out by looking through my old emails that we met almost exactly 4 years ago. I sing at St. Peter's for the Jazz Vespers a lot, and Kat is a member of the church and has sung there many, many times. And Ike Sturm introduced us, and we sang together. It was like we shook hands and met,
And then we were singing.
We were improvising together, and my life was changed. Definitely.
Has it been 4 years already?
It has
oh
been.
my goodness!
I can't believe it. I know. It was February 2014.
Right, because Bailey, I'm trying to, now we talk in terms of the children. Bailey
know.
was a baby.
Tiny.
Yeah.
So you have quite a history with St. Peter's and are a native New Yorker.
Yes.
And to say that you come from a musical family, I've learned, is to understate it greatly. With Louis Russell, your dad, who was the musical director for Louis Armstrong for many years.
Yes, between the mid-1930s and the mid-1940s, so 35 to 43. 1935 to 1943.
Wow.
Yeah. And, my father came from Panama and was actually a pianist in Colón, Panama, playing for silent films in the 19-teens before he came to America after his family won a $3,000 lottery. Panamanian National Lottery. Now, who knew, right? And, his mother had been come to the United States before that, but then at that point, when they won the money, then she brought him back with his sister, and they went directly to New Orleans because that's where jazz was continually being born at that point, and he got right into the scene, and, it was a very small crew in those days, so he ran right into Louis Armstrong and King Oliver. Amazing, and started, studied arranging and formed his own orchestra, which then later, after he worked with King Oliver in Chicago, because everybody kind of migrated to Chicago and then to New York, then by 1926 or 27, he had one of the hottest bands on the scene in New York City, so he didn't really waste any time, with that. But then Louis Armstrong, of course, worked with many different configurations, but my dad was rooted in New York by that time, and Louis Armstrong took over his orchestra, basically, and fronted it, having heard them at the Savoy Ballroom, if I have my facts straight. So that's what happened in 1935, and then they were friends through until my dad passed in 1963. They were, friends, and then in later years, after my dad had really retired from the business, he retired at the end of the big band, the decline of the big band era. As Louis Armstrong was doing the All-Stars, then Joe Glazer, Louis Armstrong's manager at the time, invited my dad to become part of the All-Stars. But at that point, I had been born, and he didn't want to go back out on the road. So he didn't do that. But but then they remained pals.
Wow.
Just this morning, I saw this awesome video that we have to link to of Louis Armstrong holding you, and you must have been 2 or something.
I was 4.
4.
Sorry. I remember the occasion.
Oh my gosh! Just the look you're singing over it. So there's no audio.
There's
but
no
it looks
audio.
like
No.
he's singing to you.
He's not singing. He is laughing, actually. And my father is taking the footage because they were both archival nuts and home movie freaks, and
oh my gosh.
They saved everything. They labeled everything.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So that's a still from a home movie that was shot during a party at Louis and Lucille's residence, which is now the museum.
Right.
And so I think I was the only child there. I don't remember any other children there. I have a very vivid memory of my early childhood. Don't ask me what happened yesterday, but I can remember when I was 4 years old. So at one point, I went over there. I remember visiting the house more than one time, but at this particular evening, he just thought, I don't know, she's cute, and let me just pick her up at this moment. And I was a little freaked out by that because he was a big presence. He actually was had a very large mouth, and and he was laughing, and I was a little startled at that point.
Yeah,
but
there's
I
a
was
look you give the camera. I'm
please, I don't really want to be doing this.
pushing
I was
him away a
pushing
little
him,
bit.
because he was like, he's trying to kiss me on the cheeks and all that. And
So sweet.
but he was very nice to me, so I have a very warm memory of him. So,
Wow.
that
That's
was
amazing. And also in that, I think before I see you and Louis together, I see this elegant, gorgeous woman sitting on the edge of the couch. And I don't
My
know
mother.
if that's Carlene. Wow.
Yes, Carlene Ray was a very elegant and well-dressed and well put together woman, and the footage, they're having a great time at the party. So, she actually loved to hang out. She didn't drink, smoke, do anything like that, but loved to hang out. So she was one of the people that frequented the Savoy Ballroom as a dancer.
Wow.
So she used to remember the battles of the bands and all these great memories. That was before my parents met, it was years before they met. But, she loved going out dancing. She was a member of the all-woman swing orchestra, the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, during World War II.
Oh, my God.
When all the men were at war, then it gave rise to a lot of female instrumentalists. So she, after graduating from Juilliard, went directly into this orchestra for about a little less than 2 years because they were looking for replacements, because the women went out on the road for a little while and then they wanted to come home and have families and things like that. So she wasn't one of the original members, but she was a prominent member. So you can actually see her, this was in the late 1940s, mid to late 1940s. So you can actually see on YouTube the miracle of the internet now.
Yeah.
Mom playing guitar in this orchestra, and you can hear her rhythm. She was a rhythm, great swing player, So you can see her in these on these YouTubes. So that was, and then my parents actually met when the rhythm section of that unit became a trio themselves. And Mom was actually the piano player in that unit with Edna Smith was the bass player and Pauline Brady was the drummer. And they played around. They had an agent, and they played different clubs. And my dad, in the early to mid-50s, was managing a club in Brooklyn called Town Hill and hired this unit. And that was what happened. That's how they met. And I came along, and here I am.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. I didn't know she played piano, too, and he was a piano player, so she must have really impressed him.
She seemed to have a talent for just picking up instruments and playing them
like it, yeah.
shortly thereafter professionally. I don't know, so piano. But she did her first major at Juilliard was concert piano.
Oh.
So she had started classically, but then went to jazz, and then ended up playing guitar and then bass right after that, because she said, "Oh, the bass is just the bottom 4 strings of the guitar. I can do this."
Wow.
And then, so she was kind of like that.
And singing as well.
And she was a classical contralto, trained contralto.
Wow.
So she ended up later on going to Manhattan School of Music and getting her degree in voice.
Wow.
So
It's a rare voice type, too. I mean,
yes,
like a true
quite.
classical contralto, it's a short list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like coloratura sopranos. It's like the other
Yeah, right.
end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But yeah, she could sing baritone,
Amazing.
she could hit, it was amazing. So Donna Lee, she didn't have to break her.
Really?
She was trying to teach me that. But I was kind of like, well, how are you? And she could go all the way down and go all the way up, so she could really sing all parts.
Wow.
She could sing a soprano part in a choir if she wanted to. Mezzo, alto, tenor, all the way down, baritone. I've heard her in different choirs, so how do you live up to that? I don't know, but
Well, that must. I actually didn't grow up in a very musical family myself. They supported me in it. I guess I'm one of the few who's done it. My cousin's in a rock band, actually, a pretty well known little rock band called Tokyo Police Club, which is popular with the young folk. But I don't know what that's like, what that must be like. Oh, my husband grew up in a super musical family. To have 2, not just professional musicians, but renowned and, hanging out with Louis Armstrong and playing 4 instruments and doing all this. That must have been, what was it like to grow up in that environment?
daunting.
Yeah.
Did you want to do something else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I looked at those degrees on the walls every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I am not an achiever like that. So it took me a while to want to be, first of all, they weren't center of attention people. They wanted to be in the band, in the unit. So I kind of grew up like that. Don't draw attention to yourself, But eventually I had to find out what I was supposed to do, So it took a while. I studied theater to help me get over my nervousness and stuff like that. So that saved my life, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you discover that you were nervous? Like, were you front and center and realizing that was feeling uncomfortable? And then how did you figure that out?
I think it was puberty, because I was a dancer first, and I was never nervous when I was in the dance troupe. We were actually, we may have been the first African American dance troupe. It was Catherine Dunham's dance troupe to perform at the Metropolitan Opera House for 4 seasons in Vaida. So we went from the old Met, which was, I think, on 39th and Broadway or something like that, then moved it for 2 seasons, then moved over to the new Met when they built Lincoln Center in 1966 or whatever it was. And I was never nervous at that point. When I was younger, people didn't really freak me out. I could get up and sing in front of people. And I think it was later on, puberty, those teen years.
You get self-conscious.
Yeah, those teen years kind of messed me up a little bit. So, I loved being in choirs because I could just hide in the choir. And then, in junior high school, I tried playing trumpet, and I tried different things. And then I went to tuba. My grandfather was a tuba and sousaphone player. So because I could wear it. I could hide in it. The tuba was big, and it was the bottom of the band, but nobody had to see you. So, I loved that. I would have been in marching band if I could have, But then I said, well, okay, this is the case. And I always loved theater, though. And then I came home. I was I went out to California when I was in my mid-teens just to get out of New York because New York was going to basically kill me. It was a very, very not a healthy environment at that point. And so I got a chance to go out to California and go to school out there. Then came home for one Christmas and saw Bubbling Brown Sugar on Broadway. And I thought, these people are having such a good time. I want to have a good time like that. How do I do that? And then I enrolled in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, got in, and that's what started to chip away at the stage fright and everything else. So the study of theater continually, So I studied for 30 years, with different teachers and everything, and did plays and all that. So I use that in every minute that I sing.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what helps me.
Yeah. I studied theater too, and then just kind of veered left or right, or however it was, zigzagged into jazz right after that. So I didn't really pursue it, but I found that I was a pretty nervous and shy kid until my late teens, and then discovered I liked being on stage, but yeah, wasn't super comfortable there. Theater school definitely helped. It also added a whole bunch of layers of, early 20s angst to my life. I can't credit theater school with doing that, but it was going to happen anyway, probably. Let's go with it. But I did find it really helpful in moments where I feel uncomfortable on stage to have some way of grounding myself and being okay with. I think the most valuable thing it taught me was being okay with being vulnerable,
right,
and being yourself, which
That's
you're
right.
not so much when you're an actor. You're often enveloped in a character, and there's vulnerability in that. But on stage,
you're
at the front
you're
of the
naked,
stage,
right?
Yeah.
You're not somebody else. You're yourself. So accepting all of the emotions and things that happen, and being okay with that, as you say, So
yeah.
Yeah.
You said something in an interview that I listened to just recently about Louis Armstrong and his music being about community and about people having a good time and bringing people together.
Yeah.
And in another interview I listened to, you spoke about the job as the leader of the band or as the front person. The way you see it, you're kind of like hosting a party.
Yeah.
And I just thought immediately, I thought back to the concert I saw just. When was it? In November.
Yeah.
At where was it? Where was I? Oh gosh.
Yeah, now
Not
you're gonna
enough coffee today.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean. I can remember 4, but November.
Oh, well, I mean, even when we were watching you at Birdland together, we had a triple date, a Duchess
Right.
date to
Duchess
go and
date.
hear you at Birdland, and it's so true, right?
Did you guys dance?
We danced.
I think
Yes,
they danced.
yes, we did.
Couldn't help themselves.
That's right.
That's true.
That's a big compliment. I appreciate that.
You really take care of us, and you're giving us this big, expansive experience, and you're so joyous and grounded and present every moment. And that you are kind of the center of attention, but you know how to dial down the focus on you. It's really
It's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah. It's
Well,
a very generous feeling.
It's not about me, though. It's about us. You know what I mean? So that also helps ground me.
Yeah.
Because I use you to help me. So if I see somebody smiling, that's great. We're having a good time together. Yeah. That's how I feel when I, have been in your audience. I feel like it's fun. The people are going to have a good time. You're having a good time. The music is joyous. You're talking to each other in between the tunes, and it's funny, and it makes everyone feel comfortable. So that's the point. Is that there's no fourth wall. There's no separation between me and you.
Yeah.
So that when we leave, we can feel better than when we got there. So I think that's
Amen.
that's
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, we haven't spoken about your extensive history singing backup for incredible artists like David Bowie and Cyndi Lauper and
Steely Dan.
and the list goes on and on, in which you had a very different role. And that came before your solo career, right?
Yeah.
How did that happen? Were you always singing? I sort of want to back up a little bit. Because you even mentioned being daunted by this musical upbringing and studying all this theater and doing dance. Were you singing that whole time? I mean, how does one end up singing background vocals for David Bowie. Like, it's fascinating.
Yes, I was singing the whole time, singing in choirs, singing, doing, little gigs. I was in a string band, like a country swing string band when I was living in California. So that was kind of my introduction to singing swing material. I did private work for 12 years straight, did a lot of weddings and, which kind of gets your repertoire increased, because you got to know a lot of tunes. And I was also doing, after school, I was doing songwriters demos. So that's how I was paying my bills. They'd call and they'd say, I did a lot of Tina Turner sound-alike things and kind of comedy demos and, and then I got into jingle work. I just through friends that said, hey, come on with me. Maybe this person maybe you'll be right for this. So that's how I'd be nowhere without my friends. So I just want everybody to know that. And for young people, make some friends because this is who you're going to be working with. Yeah. And so, people have been very good to me throughout my, so it wasn't like I decided to do anything. Everything kind of led to one thing led to the next thing. So at one point in the probably early 80s, I started auditioning for shows and different things, I was just trying to get out and meet people and see what could happen in, just going everywhere, clubs and I worked at Catch a Rising Star Comedy Club singing between comics for 4 years.
Wow.
So, but just from the drummer that was in the band at the club, I did another gig with him and he said, hey, come on over here. Maybe I got something for you to try out. Maybe they'll like you. And so that's how that, ended up becoming a gig. But I was at an audition. I want to just make sure I remember what I'm saying here. I was at an audition, and one of the other ladies that was coming to audition said, and I'll never forget this, she sat down and she said, Annie Lennox just called me on the phone. And I sat there and I thought, first, thank you for coming in and making everybody else feel this big, And then I thought, how do you get Annie Lennox to call you on the phone? I said, I'm going to find out how you get to do that. And so then a series of sitting in, doing the Catch a Rising Star gig, which was in the mid to 86 to 90, 1986 to 1990. Some of those guys were in another band that was at another club called Hades, of all things. Catch a Rising Star was 77th and 1st, and Hades was on 95th and 2nd Avenue, something like that. So they said, well, look, come on up there after you're done over here, because I think there's another situation where they might like you, right? So that turned into what became the Rock and Soul Review behind Donald Fagen, because Donald Fagen used to show up. It was led by Jimmy Vivino, who has been the musical director for Conan O'Brien show now for many years. And he's like the Pied Piper. So he was gathered everybody together in New York and said, hey, come be in my band over here. And so it seems like if Jimmy asked you to do something, everybody said yes. So he had Phoebe Snow showing up. He had all kinds of people, showing up on these gigs. And so I ended up on stage next to Donald Fagen one night because I want everybody to know that these things don't just happen. I wasn't discovered like the people say, oh, I was discovered and then I would ended up in a
and I signed
major
on the spot.
Yeah. No. So, but I could sing some blues. So
yeah, I would say you can sing some blues.
I think so.
We've all heard your life. Yes,
Oh,
we would agree with that statement.
So that's what you sit in with. If you don't know, blues verses, but everybody could do that. So I ended up doing that, and then I had a glove. I had this like fingerless lace glove on, and Donald said, "Oh, I like that glove," and that's the first thing he ever said to me. And I thought, I don't know, and then. After that, at that particular gig, I couldn't ever hear myself. Everything was very loud, and I was just kind of finding my way. I don't know what he heard, but Donald ended up hiring me for Rock and Soul review, which was in about 1990, 91 in there someplace, which led to him hiring me for Rock and Soul Review on the Road in 1992, which led to getting hired for the Steely Dan Road reunion in 93. So one thing led to the next, which led to then when you start the touring life, then other people say, oh, she's touring with, and can you do this? So, Cyndi Lauper was looking for, I guess she had let a couple of girls go and she was looking for replacements. So I happened to know people that were working with her, and they said, well, I got a call one day from the bass player. I had my laundry in the dryer, and he said, well, look, come on over here because she's auditioning. I said, okay, my clothes are in the dryer. Let me just get my clothes out of the dryer, and I'll come right over there. So went over there and ended up getting the gig with another lady, singer named Chrissy Faith, who, so we ended up doing that together in 1993. So one thing leads to another, and as I say, without my friends recommending me, none of this would have happened. So,
wow.
It's a long answer, but that's
but it's a great answer. I think it's a great point that there is this mythology in the music business. I mean, you hear it all, probably in every business.
Yeah.
But you always hear about, I said that line. It's funny. My husband's in the record business, and he did A&R he does A&R, but he did A&R for many years. And he has all these stories where, you read an article about whatever artist is on the scene, breaking into the scene. And it always kind of ends with some version of, and I signed them on the spot. And he says, I was there. I can tell you that there was a bidding war between this label and this label, and they went back and forth. And the whole negotiation took several months. Like, there's no such thing as anything happening on the spot.
No.
Maybe that magic moment where the paper gets signed or you book the gig, that feels like it happens right then. But a whole bunch of other stuff had to happen before you get to that instantaneous success.
Yeah. I think that might come from the old glory days of Hollywood, where they see somebody in the coffee shop and
Lana Turner at the soda fountain.
That type of thing. That was the olden days.
Yeah.
That
and
kind
I
of
think
thing.
even that story was made up.
Right.
I don't think that was even a true story.
Right.
So, yeah.
So it does have to go through many steps.
Yeah.
Friends, very important.
We talked about it before too. You just you don't know.
You don't know.
You have to be a good human being and
say yes to stuff.
Yeah,
too.
and
try
that's true.
things that are scary and
like some of the modern jazz that we sing together.
yeah, exactly.
Who, Ike? Never. That's so
He's
straightforward.
I know.
This will be easy, Catherine. And
You'll
the
hear
first
it.
day, you'll hear it. Yeah, the first day that I sang with you, and he said, "Oh, just do what you hear on that."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "What? You improvise? Oh no! You're not going to give me anything scary, very scary." But now it's now I know what the deal is. So. I know that when he gives me something with a certain key signature on it, that not necessarily
exactly
the key that it's in.
Yeah, it's a whole different world.
It's a whole different world, so it stretches the mind. It's great.
It really does.
It really
and you know
does.
what else has been really interesting is you have written a couple of harmony parts. Well, you've just come up with harmony parts for some of these melodies that Ike writes. And then you actually wrote one and he requested that you write it down.
Yeah.
You were improvising it week to week. And it is so awesome and so different. So different from what Ike would write for a second line, but also just I would never have come up with it. And I get to sing it sometimes when someone else is singing the melody. And it's it's really amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
But not as good as when I get to sing it with you. Which
With you, yes.
Which is pretty fantastic.
Yes.
So we get to sing together sometimes. And someday, the four of us
Yes.
do something.
That'd be
Yes. Yes, we will. So I think we should put that together so that when the time comes and you call me and you say, hey, Kat, we're over here tonight. Come on down. Then I'll be ready to jump on in with that.
Yeah.
So I think that would be great.
You heard it here, folks.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
Got to put it out there.
Yes, absolutely.
We have a lot of some common ground. I mean, I don't know, 1 million songs, perhaps, because every 2 years you're putting out a new record with all these songs, half of which I've never heard of before. Each one, I'm like jaw on the floor, whooping it up on the subway platform today. Like,
You're very nice. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this is just too good. But there are a couple of songs that you do that we happen to do, and I think because of the Boswell sisters connection, which is one of our influences, and I think a big influence for you, and New Orleans music is important to you.
Yes, traditional jazz and the roots of all music is what interests me. So I love all kinds of music. I listen to everything, but the roots, where the thing comes from is very interesting to me. And the Boswell sisters did such interesting work. I mean, in such a ton of work that the catalog is so vast. That is just great. What an interesting story that is, So you can hunt. And, a lot of times I'm looking for tunes and they've recorded them. They recorded so many tunes that, were not well known, really,
Yeah,
so
sometimes it's the only version is their version.
Right.
And you're like, wow, why didn't anyone else do this?
They weren't recording for very long.
Yeah, right. It was a very short period.
Yeah, but the that's also what's so mind-boggling is that a lot of these folks were not around. They didn't have long careers, yet the volume of recorded work is like, when did they sleep? When did they, So I just think I'm a baby. It's like, oh, I'm tired. I need to, And then I look at the schedules of these of all my iconic idols, and I think, these folks were just working around the clock. They weren't sleeping. They were traveling. They were recording between shows, 5 shows a day, and then they'd go into the studio at night. I mean, we have no idea.
Right. That's a different kind of stamina.
Completely different. And it's music saved them. Music saved their lives. So anybody that doesn't think music is a lifesaver, and I've heard people say, oh, singers, what do singers know about important, a lot of people really do feel that way, that music is not medicine, that music does not save lives. Trust me, it saves lives, literally. A lot of us, I don't know, what would we be doing? Yeah. Maybe some of us have options. I don't, I don't know where I'd be, really,
Well, it's clearly your calling, and you make me feel good every time I hear you sing. And I've been really digging into 4 or 5 of your records recently. I didn't realize there were so many. I heard you speak at Jazz Connect last year, and you talked just briefly. There were a bunch of singers on the panel, and you spoke about making a commitment to put out a record every couple of years, and that stuck with me. I thought, I certainly don't do that. I should get on the bus there. But then I looked, and every 2 years you put out a record since 2006.
Yeah, because I was 48 or something like that when I started.
With your first solo
50.
recording?
Yeah. So, how much time do I have? Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Right. So I just felt like I have an opportunity. I have the help. I have people that are saying, yes, we'll help you. Yeah. So how can I, squander that? So that's how I feel. And then it also keeps me disciplined. If I have to do something and have something ready, then I can't sit back and, walk, because I can just walk around and look at trees all day. I don't need, I can just sit and play, word puzzle games and read and, I love to read, but, I can just sit and look. I'm not a person that, I don't have a very high, I get up in the morning and I got to do 50 million things before 9 o'clock. That's really never been me. So I have to keep myself disciplined.
Nothing like a deadline.
Yeah.
I mean,
it
helps.
Yeah. So, you have gigs. You have to keep things moving for an audience. You have to keep changing the material and adding new material and finding tunes and stuff like that. So it just keeps me on track.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I just, like I said, I just love every song that you sing, some of which I've heard many times before. Nice. But for instance, I wrote a couple of little notes here upside down on the subway. Wake Up and Live, I would like to wake up to that every morning because I think it would make me a more, even more positive and productive person.
That's how I felt.
That would be so fun. Oh my gosh.
That's how I felt when I heard it. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, where'd you find that? I want to know.
Comes from the Ella Fitzgerald Chick Webb catalog.
No kidding.
And I'm not sure if Edgar Sampson was the third vocalist. It's a vocal trio arrangement, but Charles Linton, who was the male vocalist at that time with Chick Webb Orchestra, who actually, I think, encouraged Chick Webb to bring Ella into the orchestra. It's the three of them singing. So it's, and I remember hearing that when I was young. And then for Christmas or something, a few years ago, my dear husband, because he knows what to get me, got me the Mosaic collection of a complete Ella Fitzgerald with Chick Webb.
That. I need to look up.
Yeah.
Talk about the people recording a ton in a short period of time.
Yes.
Chick Webb was in his early 30s
Yeah,
when he
'cause
died
he
or
did-
something.
right.
And this big band, they just recorded,
Unbelievable.
endless, reams and reams of tunes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And, everything from Great American Irving, Berlin, stuff you just never heard.
Silly novelty tunes.
Yeah. And so I still haven't finished combing through that
Yeah.
box set,
Yeah.
And so I heard that and I said, oh yeah, this is a good message. I like positive messages. I don't do a lot of woe is me type of material. Oh, my man, or, left me, or any kind of pointing a finger at a man. You better treat me, better than, you no account man, you better treat. So I look for more positive material. So.
But the way that you delivered that, what's the name of that song? Your key don't fit in this lock no more.
Yes, you got
You got the right key, but the wrong
That's
key.
the wrong.
Yes.
Yes.
Now wow.
Yeah, that is finger pointing in a way.
Well, in a way,
But
but
it's-
it's different.
It's kind of revenge rather than you left and you came back and now it's
snooze,
too late.
you lose.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a little tongue in cheek too. It's
A little
very
bit.
playful, and I love it.
Oh yeah. Oh
So,
my
yeah.
gosh.
I love that early period of blues singers because that's also as soon as Mamie Smith in 1920 recorded Crazy Blues, that opened up the doors for blues. Everything was blues after that. Everything was blues. So it's basically blues singers backed by jazz musicians, So there's a lot of interesting texture in the playing.
Yeah.
It's not all 12-bar blues. I look for things that are not 12-bar blues. Blues that can be 8-bar blues. It can be just blues with different sections in it. You know what I mean? And there's a ton of that too. All kinds of people you never heard of.
Yeah.
Singers, all kinds of black women that had short careers, long careers. They were piano players. They sang with big bands. They didn't sing with big bands. Louis Armstrong did a lot of recording on a lot of those early records. Bessie Smith, Sippy Wallace, Ethel Waters. You can just name them, and a lot of them you haven't heard of. Mm-hmm. It's great to do the research on it, and learn about these people.
Yeah, we have to. I think my favorite title of a song on any of your 6 or 7 albums is Long, Strong, and Consecutive.
Yes. Now,
Yeah.
Kiss Me Long, Strong, and Consecutive. That's a Mac David, Duke Ellington tune. And Ivy Anderson did the original recording of that. And so, I'm combing through another Duke Ellington box 10 CD box set. And there that was, and I thought, that's interesting. I don't know where it went. I don't think it was in a film or anything, because a lot of these tunes were associated with shows, stage shows or films. And I think Mac David and Duke Ellington did a fair amount of writing together, but Mac David, of course, wrote with a lot of people, But this was, his lyric, and I thought, okay, I kind of like that, it's funny, and I think the guys, my musicians at that point did a really nice treatment of it.
Oh, yeah. So. And I wanted to ask you about that, too, about your collaborators. And I know you have worked a lot with Matt Monasteri.
Yes.
Is that him on that duet?
on...
Satchel Mouth.
Yes,
Baby.
Satchel Mouth Baby. That is
Yeah.
Matt. Yeah. Yeah, so that's
That's
a
great.
Mary Lou Williams tune. And so Matt actually is a fantastic guitar player and a great songwriter in his own right. So he's, I kind of chased him down to work with me, you know. And so he's been with me since my second album.
Oh,
and he was doing gigs with me first. And he helps me with, you know, so he basically is my musical director on stage and done some arrangements for me and just helps me all the time. He's just my right hand, you know, my musical right hand. So, you know, I just love working with him.
He's the greatest.
He is. I love the record he did. I can never think of the guy's name. Was it Willard Robeson?
Willard Robeson, yes.
That album. I mean,
yes.
It's such a fascinating project, and it's a guy who wrote Cottage for Sale, and he wrote all of these really. I mean, that's a tune that was like his hit, but he wrote all these other tunes that kind of veer into folk and country
Right.
and bluegrass and very unusual forms, and they tell these stories, and it's fascinating music. And Matt did this whole recording where he plays and sings and has arranged all this stuff, but then he wrote these incredible liner notes. I mean, the guy's like a musicologist also, and I mean, it's a really incredible project. He's a great musician.
Liner
is.
notes.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I know.
I love
I was just
liner
thinking,
notes so
I
much.
should get it on the computer, and then I was like, liner notes.
You know,
Okay,
that-
I'll find it. That's
that might
cool.
be-
It's not as instant gratification.
That one might
but
be like a digital booklet. I wonder.
Oh, yeah?
I wonder about that. I mean, I bought it from him like at a show, so I don't know. But
right.
there may be,
No,
because
I'll-
that's
I
the
mean,
kind of
we can
project.
We can email him and ask him.
Yeah,
too.
but that's the kind of project you want to read. You know,
sure.
it
Oh,
just
yeah.
enhanced so much of the material. I mean, I
Yeah.
heard all these sort of backstories and learned about this person's. It was just amazing that he did all that excavation and then.
He
came
does a
up with
lot
this
of
project.
excavation. That's a
Yeah.
good word. He
Yeah.
really is an archaeologist like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
He knows, he's so knowledgeable, you know. So that's what I learn from the people I work with all the time. And most of the tunes that I come up with, they already know.
Wow.
Whoa.
They already know them.
Wow.
Well, I mean, Kelso, you work a lot with John Eric
Work
Kelso.
with John
He
Eric
knows
Kelso.
all that early stuff.
He's
inside
another
and
one.
out. Yeah.
He knows all the histories of everything.
Yeah.
You know, he knows.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys all know. Mark Shane, you know, pianist, he knows. It's hard to name a tune that he doesn't know.
Wow.
You know, because he recorded with a vocalist called Terry Blaine for many years. And they did a lot of old tunes. You know, they did a lot of early material. So I'll think I found something. And then he had recorded with Terry Blaine 20 years ago. So, yeah.
You're like, boy, do I have something to surprise you.
Yeah. So, you know,
Try to stump him.
it's hard to stump them. Very,
Yeah.
very
That's
difficult.
great.
Wow, and that's really saying something. I mean, I kind of knew this, but listening to your records and thinking about the era, I was just surprised again at how these are all really tricky tunes that go in way different places than you would expect. Some
Yeah.
of them wildly different
Yeah.
to me. And I'm like, okay, this is not just like another rhythm changes tune or like when I first started singing jazz, I was doing a lot of like Slim and Slam and like, jump jive tunes. It
Yeah.
was so fun. But my band was getting really bored because it was all rhythm changes tunes.
Right.
And I didn't know. I was just having the time of my life. It's like, what do you mean? They're
so
come
different.
On, this one has
They're
a shout
different
chorus.
words.
Exactly. Different key, maybe. If
I
you're
know.
lucky.
I know.
Yeah. But
I know.
But this stuff is it's really phenomenal. Really takes your ear and your brain on a journey. So
Oh, well, thanks.
amazing tunes.
I like to mix it up, though. I like those
Yeah,
those
I
jump
like
and
those
jive.
too.
You know, I like that stuff. You know, but the later, you know, when rock and roll came into the picture, even starting in the late '40s, changes started to go down because that was the money was going to be in rock and roll.
Yeah.
See, so that's what happened to all those great, you know, songwriting teams and Tin Pan Alley stuff and all that. You know, rock and roll really changed the landscape of that. So, you know, the tunes are a lot of fun, but the changes, you're not going to find the changes. You know, I love the sound of that stuff, though.
Yeah,
you know,
the
Wynonie
feel.
Harris and the Louis Jordan and all that. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun. You know, so you mix in, you do something like No More, you know, which is was when they asked Billie Holiday what was her favorite tune that she ever recorded out of all that stuff, she said No More. Now, I hadn't even heard her version of
That
it.
you ain't gonna bother me. no
Right.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, I had heard Abby Lincoln's version
Right.
of that, you know. But there you go. Somebody records something, and so did Billie Holiday. Like, so did the Boswell sisters. So did, what I mean? So did Ella, yeah.
You're the only other person I've heard sing that aside from Billie. And when I heard you sing that, I was like, I'm
What, no more?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm never going to sing that song because I don't need to. And also because it's too darn hard. It's that bridge. Like, oh, I know where this is going to go. Oh, no. Oh, no, I don't. It's like harder than Lush Life.
Oh, I don't know about that. It might be on that plane.
You just haven't heard it as many times as you've heard Lush Life.
True.
Yeah.
That's probably true. But
Lush Life was tough.
I love the way you sing that, though.
Thank you. I haven't tackled Lush Life yet. Do you sing Lush Life?
I don't. I mean, I have, like, Alone with the keyboard, with the fake book. But
have you heard that video of Frank Sinatra, or heard the video on? There's a video on YouTube where you can hear the audio of Frank Sinatra in the recording studio, and they're like trying Lush Life. And it's Sinatra. Like, he could sing, and he just like gives up at a certain point. Like, it just kind of, they kind of just fall down the stairs, and he basically says some version of like, you know what, we're done here.
Right. Right.
So it made me feel so much better. I'm like, okay, well, if it was, if Sinatra had that moment in the studio and it's on YouTube, it's all going to be okay.
Because South to a Warmer Place is another tune that I did on an earlier album that Sinatra did sing in his later years.
Oh, wow.
Which is another not easy tune. The writer is going to...
Alec Wilder.
Alec Wilder, thank you very much.
Yeah, wow, yeah. His
And, so I heard that, and I thought, I heard it actually played on the radio. I don't know if Jonathan Schwartz played, it might have been on his show. And... it was from a live performance, from a Frank live performance. So it's interesting that he thought Lush Life was, he gave up on that, because South to a Warmer Place that's not an easy tune if you look that up.
Right. Well, and who knows? There's no context or anything given with this this video, but But he was really interesting with tunes later in his life and his career. He did some really thoughtful, interesting songs. I'm not familiar with that tune, but he did September of My Years and these really beautiful things. And I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I'm so inspired by your saying that you did your first solo record in your late 40s, having had a really successful career already singing. And I don't think it's a coincidence that your repertoire is so interesting and good, and that I feel like you're a singular singer. You only sound like yourself when you're singing something. There is an R&B element. There definitely is a jazz element, but it all just adds up to you. And I'm projecting. I have no idea if this is true, but I'm guessing that if someone had come up to you when you were 24 and said, you know what, we're going to make a record and it's going to be great and do these tunes, I'm sure it would have been great because you were probably a great singer then too, but I don't know if it would have had the same, weight and impact and significance that these records do. It's a shame that we live in a world that too often sort of says that women and artists get less relevant as we grow up. And I'm glad that has not been the case at all with you, because your music has just made our lives so much better. And we're huge fans.
I appreciate it, and the feelings are mutual. And, at that point, you go through I was doing a lot of session work. And early on, and I can't remember, I did make records early on. I was the lead singer of a French group when I was in 1980 called New Paradise. I was living overseas in Paris, and it all sounds very glamorous, but honey, believe me, it was not. It was a lot of stumbling and falling and learning as I went, and you do a lot of different things because nobody heard me as anything but a screamer, So I did a lot of hollering because I can do that, but then nobody calls you for other things. And also I didn't know I could do other things. I didn't know myself that way. So at the point where, somebody was going to sign me, it was going to be for pop music. It was not going to be for jazz. It was going to be for some kind of pop, R&B, pop that I just, in my conscious, I just said, in my haze of I don't know what life is all about, I said, I don't want to wake up and have memories, somebody else's memories attached to something that I hate. Because if you have a hit, that's it for the rest of your life. You're stuck with that.
Yeah.
And the people are paying to hear that.
That's right.
And you have to do that. And I've seen artists that I work with go through that, where they want to do the new material, but they have to do the new material to get to the old material, because that's what the people want to hear, period. So if you had a period of hits, and that goes for everybody that I've worked with, if you have a period of hits, you're going to be doing those on every show. Mm-hmm. I don't care what new album you put out, So I said to myself, and I had also seen colleagues of mine, basically, African American women, go through pigeonhole. Not that everybody does not get pigeonholed by the record industry. Everybody does, but go through the pigeonhole, major label pigeonholing, where they turn in an album of stuff they like, and the label says, no, we hate it. Go back in.
Right.
And this is I've seen this many times, not several times, not a few times, but many times, with all of my colleagues who have had past successes. And I just said, this is not going to be quite right until it's right. So
good for you, though.
So, I didn't know a whole lot, but I knew I didn't want to do that, because I would have ended up on celebrity rehab or something like that. Seriously, hating myself. So no, so I just said, I know that the Creator may have other plans for me. It may take a while, but
Well,
But now that makes me think of a question that we like to ask. I'm not going to ask it especially well, but not those questions, Amy.
No, I'm just curious, because
the
I
podcast
also
is
have a bad
called-
memory and I have no idea what she's about to say. Oh, yes. Okay, I know where you're
Our
going.
podcast is called Harmony and Hijinks with Duchess. And we like to talk for the most part, we've been speaking with musicians, but not exclusively, and we're opening it up. But we want to hear from everybody that we speak with about how harmony is or isn't important in your career and in your life. And well, I'm sure it is, because it's a great big part of your life. But
like as a concept, the
as a
overarching concept
yeah.
of harmony, not necessarily like
Musical
building a triad.
harmony.
Yeah, but this,
Right.
whether it's, I don't know, you've talked about your friends, or some people talk about integrating work-life balance, or, whatever that idea means.
or like
to
how
you.
much peanut butter to how much jam.
which is important.
It's
it's
very
important. Harmony for me at home is important, because we're gone a lot. We're busy, busy people, and I never raise children. You juggling, your home lives and professional lives, which I have all respect for, and also harmony on the road. So when you're traveling, I like for people to get along very well. I like for there to be harmony before, during, and after the show. So harmony, that in that case means I know what's going to happen when I arrive in a place. You know what's going to happen when you're traveling, as much as possible, barring delays of any kind. And then when you get to the venue, who greets you, are they going to have, because basically men on the road, they want to know when they're going to eat. When does the gig start and end? And when do they get paid?
And is there a drink included at the
And is
gig?
there a drink included? And when can they go home?
Yeah.
When can they go home or back to their hotel rooms? So those things are very important. And if you don't take care of those things go south very quickly. You get some long faces and disgruntled vibes and things like that. So I like to be very organized like that on the road. I like to work on my show before the day, having so everybody has what we're going to do. It can change, but we have a plan.
Yeah.
So as long as there's a plan, then there's no chaos. There's no taping of paper at the last minute, and I don't have this copied and all that stuff. I like to have my copies made. I like to have my charts taped. You know, I have my little pocket watch on the stage. So if you want 245s, it's going to be 245s. You know, if you want 190, that's what it's going to be. At 89 minutes, okay, we're going to wrap this up. It's going to be 90 minutes, you know. Mm-hmm. So organization and preparation, to me, are very important for me, because I feel like my head, if you saw what was inside my head, it would be like a bowl of spaghetti. So I just feel like outwardly I need to be as prepared as I possibly can, because when you get to the gig, you're on. You're on when you get there.
When you open the door.
When you open the door and say hi to the first person that greets you, you're on. Mm-hmm. So that's the impression that everyone has of you till you leave, you know. So that's how I think of harmony.
Fantastic.
Wise.
Yes.
Literal harmony. I have to say that I think we all tuned in to the Jazz at Lincoln Center broadcast of you singing with Carolyn and Latanya.
Oh, I love singing with those women. I love singing with those
it's
women.
So good.
Thank you. I've known both of those ladies obviously for a long time. Known Carolyn, I might have known Latanya longer, because she and I did a lot of work, all different kinds of work together, studio work, all kinds of things. And we also worked with Michael Feinstein as his backup group for several years. And Carolyn I'd done Steely Dan with, and known her and the family for many years. There was a project of tunes that Cy Oliver, trumpeter, composer, arranger, singer, Cy Oliver, incredible person, arranged for Tommy Dorsey and Jimmy Lunsford back in the 30s and 40s, and also for the Mills Brothers, Louis Armstrong. He arranged for numerous people. He was a staff arranger at a major record label, and that's escaping me right now, for many years, and musical directed so many great recordings. And so his wife, Lillian Clark, and my mother, Carlene Ray, had a group back in the 80s, and Cy Oliver had rearranged several of the arrangements. He passed shortly after that, but several of the arrangements that he'd done for Jimmy Lunsford and Tommy Dorsey for women, because they were basically male trio and quartet arrangements. So we had a group that we did a few shows back then, and never got to really do a whole show. Lillian Clark, of course, became ill and passed. And so I said to my mother, I said, somehow I'm going to get this done. So then my mother became too ill also to do it. So I'm the keeper of the flames here. So when we presented the idea to Jazz at Lincoln Center, they said, great, let's do this. So they let me realize my 30-year goal of doing this material. So now we are adding to that repertoire. Nice. And, getting to do the show in different places. So when I thought of who I wanted to do that with, I thought, okay, who's going to have a jazz sensibility but still be into other kinds of music, but can swing and knows and have a great work ethic. They look great. They ask me when they can rehearse. Who does that? You know what I mean?
Women.
Women. Thank you, women. Thank you, Amy. That's true. And so, they fill my heart with joy, because they've embraced the material. And it's really traditional, swing era material. And they are really modern, they're more modern jazz singers, they're really more interested in that. But they've embraced it, So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So that continues.
I'm glad that it has some legs. That's great.
Yes,
Six.
Yes.
6 legs.
Yes, 6 legs. And so I'm just so grateful to, get opportunities to realize what my mom, and I had worked on. She was my biggest fan, so she and I joined St. Peter's together. She was
Wow.
Had done so much work at St. Peter's, so many shows, and so we were looking for a church home. So one day we looked at each other and said, "Let's just join. What are we doing?" So
It's the jazz church.
yeah,
right?
yeah. So that's how that
Wow.
happened. Yeah, to get back to
I
that.
love that duet that you two did. What's it called?
Well, that would have been
He's All I Need.
He's All I Need.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a Marie Knight and Sister Rosetta Tharpe duet from the 40s, I think 1947. And Sister Rosetta Tharpe, there was a play actually about the two of them working together, which was very, very good off-Broadway play. And so they did a bunch of recording together in the late 40s. And it's swing gospel. So that's what it is. It's traditional gospel. And this is actually a slow tune. He's All I Need is a slow tune. But when I presented it to Mom, she said, "Oh, I like that. I like that. Let's do that." She was a woman of faith. And she said, "Yes, I really like that." So it was very fulfilling to record that with her. I wanted to record with her before it was too late. I actually produced an album on her, with called Vocal Sides, and she was the greatest in the studio, just raring to go. But I wanted to do a whole vocal album of her, which hadn't been done.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
So
incredible.
in the middle of that process, then we found some duets to do.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
Before we get to this questionnaire, I just what's next for you?
As we say, foraging and gathering for my next recording. Sometime this year I will go in and do that, and then just all the nice gigs and things that are coming up. Festivals and. I get to do the Bern International Jazz Festival again, and they've been very good to me. And I love Bern, Switzerland. I love going overseas. I really love travel and performing for people overseas. It's very fulfilling. But I must say, since doing my own project, I have been very happy to perform all over the United States as well, in places that I'd never been, with very happy, welcoming individuals, happy audiences. There are great festivals here in the States. And, jazz is not dead. So we thank you to...
It smells funny. That's not mine, obviously. It's Frank Zappa, I think.
It's just a beautiful thing to meet people and make music and do what you love to do. So
Here, here.
You want to do
I
this?
think you should.
Oh, okay.
Because I've been running my mouth. So
no, not more than I've been running mine.
it's shocking.
All right. Are you ready for
Yes.
this questionnaire? Where were you born?
Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn? We're in Brooklyn.
Well, it would be the Flatbush Bed-Stuy area.
Awesome.
These days, yeah.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Washington Heights, in Manhattan, and in the Bronx.
Oh, nice. And then when did you move to LA? That was
I moved to the Bay Area, not to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I moved to Northern California
Oh, beautiful.
in the early 70s, about 1974,
Okay.
because I wanted to finish high school and go to college. So I wasn't going to be able to do that here, and I got the opportunity to do that through living in a communal situation. So there were many houses all over the country, so I was able to move into, I was living in one here, which was also in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and I was able to move to Sonoma County area
Oh, so beautiful.
and live in the commune for a little while until I, moved out and started moving around, and then
Right.
I was able to go to junior college and then go to college. I got my high school equivalency out there, established my residency, so I was able to go to tuition-free
Right.
college.
Smart.
So,
That's great. What's your favorite drink?
well, non-alcoholic, I
You
would
can
say.
go either way.
Sparkling water. and good red wine.
All right.
Sonoma.
Yes, some of the best.
What song makes you dance?
I would say the first thing that comes to my mind is Swing Brother Swing. But I would say mostly Count Basie. Anything that swings makes me dance. And also James Brown makes me dance.
Yes.
I love funk.
Moving. Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Boy, that's so many things come into my head. I already do teach, so I love that. I love teaching. But I would love to make things. I would love to know how to make something. Like my mother sewed all my clothes and all her clothes. She was one of those old-fashioned pioneer women. Women used to know how to do everything. Cook, clean, sew, build, fix your car. They could do everything. So I would love to sew. I would love to know how to make something. I don't care if it's model airplanes or trains or, just take something, and when I've done it, I have something.
Yeah.
Physical.
Right. Huh. That's cool. Yeah, it doesn't happen for many people anymore. Like you just don't have that.
You don't have the time. You don't have the time, or the people would apprentice, learning how to do something for many years, and then they'd be good at it, like violin making or something, that type of thing.
Craft.
Yeah. It's instrument building.
Yeah.
That's something where you take the wood and, it's the tree today and tomorrow it's a guitar. That's very exciting.
What profession would you not like to do?
I wouldn't be a doctor. I don't like organs and surgery. No.
Fair. Fair point. Yeah.
No. And I have all respect for great surgeons because they've saved me. So, I have all respect for healers.
Yes.
Yeah. But that wouldn't be a profession I would.
I would contend that you are a healer. You're just not a surgeon, but you are a healer. Yeah.
What makes you laugh?
I hate to say it, but just really comedians that are not necessarily clean comics. I like really funny to the point comedians like Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock.
Yes.
Those are two of my favorite. It's topical, it's hilarious, and it's profane at some points, but to make a point.
Yes.
It's not just profane to be profane. It's they're actually talking about subjects that are relevant and important, you know. So comedy, I just love good comedy.
What makes you cry?
Opera. Beautiful operatic voices. Just I have so much respect for opera, and the skill and the depth that they have to go to Maria Callas, Leontine Price. These people just kill me. I just can't believe the skill mixed with the theatrical element. They're singing arias. Beverly Sills, they're singing arias on their backs, for God's sakes. How do they do it? So Pavarotti, I don't know, just a beautiful voice telling a story like that just gets me every time. I love opera.
What is your favorite place in the world?
I haven't been everywhere in the world.
So far.
But so far, I would say it's between two places for me. It's the Alps, because mountains and mountain views and scenery. So I'd say the Alps and the Canadian Rockies are two of my favorite places, because those are it's just the most breathtaking scenery everywhere you look, and just mountain peaks and just the vastness of big sky and all that. I love that, And Paris. I think Paris is an incredibly beautiful city. Central Paris is just lovely. The architecture is phenomenal. And just the little neighborhoods and little stores and, It hasn't gotten corporate yet, with all that big stuff. You can still go to see little stores where people are in there making things. Like I'm getting back to, people are actually making things.
Right.
And you can get one of a kind things that somebody made. So those beautiful architecture and mountains.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it. Paris. Let's go to Paris.
Let's do it.
It has been a minute since I was in Paris, and I think it is time. So, putting that out there.
Yeah.
Manifesting.
Yeah. How about for our anniversary one of these years?
We'll just go.
I was going to go
Just-
with
I was
my
thinking maybe
husband,
we could get a gig, but
yeah.
But let's
or
just
both.
go.
Let's wrap it all up together.
Yeah.
Tell her husband. So the great news is I'm going to Paris.
We are going to
News is
Paris.
You're not
By we, I
invited,
mean
Duchess.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being our
you.
guest today.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I feel at ease. The best interviews are conversations.
Well,
So I love all of you, and I appreciate it.
we love you.
We
Thanks
love
for
you.
amen.
It
Yeah.
was really great to learn from you today. So
Yes.
thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I remembered where that concert was now. It was at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, just
It was
Carnegie
just
Hall.
Carnegie Hall.
Zankel Hall,
That's right. Yeah.
ladies and
So-
gentlemen,
No, Carnegie,
Zankel Hall.
Carnegie.
Sold out at Zankel Hall. All right, let's get to these cookies.
Oh, yes. Cookies. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Harmony and Hijinks. You can buy Laughing at Life wherever music is sold and through our website, duchesstrio.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Duchess Trio. And please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcatcher. See you next time on Harmony and Hijinks.